This year is the 25-year anniversary of Babs. Is it true or not? Okay. I thought it might be just using that to get me here. And in the same way also, it coincides with SBS, also having our 25-year anniversary, also this year. So both societies were found in the year 2000, and maybe we can call them the babies of the new millennia, the New Year babies. 2000, both societies were founded. And so I would therefore like to title my talk for today as 25 years of spiritual friendship, walking the noble path together. I think that's a very meaningful theme, both on the individual level, but also as a Buddhist society, as a group where we support each other. So if you look at the very common and often cited Pali term, Kalyana Mittas, spiritual friendship, what does that mean? Kalyana Mitta consists of two parts, right? The first time is Kalyana. Kalyana can be translated as good, benevolent, beneficial, lovely, something like that. And Mitta is a friend. So a good, benevolent friend, somebody who supports each other. And depending on the context, the term Kalyana fulfills and covers a range of meaning. And we can see a bit later then in the suttas how it's used in different contexts. For example, the most famous one that I know many of you probably are familiar with from Samyutta Nikaya 3.18, which is the most famous passage where Venerable Ananda has an exchange with the Buddha, and they speak about spiritual friendship. And Venerable Ananda famously says to the Buddha that spiritual friendship is half of the holy life, half of the spiritual life. Good friendship is only half of that. Seems like a lot. But the Buddha said, no, don't say so, Ananda. Spiritual friendship is the entirety of the holy life. Wow, quite stunning, isn't it? The complete of the holy life depends on good friendship, on spiritual friends, on Kalyana Mittas. Amazing. And then another sutta, for the Samyutta 45.63, a little bit similar, but the Buddha also highlights the importance of spiritual friendship. The Buddha is saying, bhikkhus, one thing is very helpful for the arising of the Noble Eightfold Path. What one thing? Good friendship. When a bhikkhu has a good friend, it is to be expected that he will develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. And of course we all know the Noble Eightfold Path, that's the path to Nibbana. So again, the one thing that is required, good friendship, spiritual friendship. So then the question arises, at least for me and I think for many of us, why did the Buddha emphasize so much on the importance of spiritual friendship? Well, one aspect is, you can think back at the Buddha's time. When you want to hear the Dhamma, or be introduced to the Dhamma, somebody has to tell you, So you need somebody who knows the Dhamma and who is willing to share it. You couldn't just go on YouTube, or social media, Spotify, or whatever, and then find all kind of Dhamma talks from different teachers. No. You need to find someone who has heard the Dhamma, either the Buddha himself, of course, or a disciple of the Buddha, and who has maybe even memorized parts of the Dhamma. It will be quite difficult to find somebody who has memorized everything. Nowadays, you can just take the Samyutta Nikaya, just read it from cover to cover. But back in the days, well, good luck. And good luck finding someone who has memorized so much. So sometimes you would hear a snippet here, a sutta there, and then over time, a little bit of Dhamma vocabulary and familiarity builds up. So hearing the Dhamma, we need a Kalyana Mitta. That's the first role that the Kalyana Mitta plays. He or she introduces us to the Dhamma and makes it approachable and relevant. But not just that. It's not only the passing on of information. A true Kalyana Mitta also functions as a role model, I would say. as somebody to whom we can look up and say, wow, something is different with this person. A person who has practiced the Dhamma, maybe not just for a month or 3, but maybe for 5 years or even longer. Hopefully, we can see a difference. The way the person talks, the way the person holds his body, interacts with others. It's not the same. So, sometimes we can get inspired by that. Or even the famous instance where Venerable Sariputta, not yet venerable, he was already an ascetic, looking around, and then he saw just this Assaji, this new monk, but already became an Arahant, just saw this Assaji, Venerable Assaji walking on arms around. And so just seeing that, the composure, deportment, he was so inspired by that he approached him and asked, well, who is your teacher? Well, how do you teach, and can I learn from you? And Venerable Assaji famously said, well, I'm quite new here in this Dhamma discipline, but the Bhagavan, the Buddha, the Blessed One is my teacher. It's also quite humble, isn't it? For an Arahant to say, well, I'm quite new here, but the Buddha is my teacher. So again, you can, as a role model, you can inspire others by being a spiritual friend. So we need that. Nowadays, many of you, I'm sure you're familiar, but if a Dhamma question, you can just go to ChatGPT or Nobu, or even better, Nobu EPT, Nobu that is based on the early Buddhist texts, and just key in your question, and sure enough, you will get an answer, and more often than not, it's actually quite accurate. In fact, I would say, good luck finding a monk or anyone who knows the Dhamma more accurately, faster, immediately you get an answer, and even with source references. Well, I don't know. There are not many monks around who can compete with Nobu on that level. But then, of course, having a Kalyanamitta is more than just passing on information. Spiritual friends, whether they are monks, nuns, or lay teachers, or Kalyanamitta friends, they fulfill also a function of being a role model. And that function, ChatGPT will never fulfill, right? You will never go to ChatGPT and pay respects and, okay, and we don't have the sense of inspiration from a chatbot. Yes, it can provide information, but not as inspiration. So again, having these living examples of people who have practiced the Dhamma, and I know some of you have been practicing the Dhamma for many years, and you yourself are probably regarded by some as Kalyanamittas, hopefully. So that's another function of a spiritual friend. And as the Buddha said famously in the Mangala Sutta, do not associate with fools, but associate with the wise. Again, it's an encouragement of seeking out good spiritual friendship. And there's an interesting field in neuroscience where they have started to explore the neurological basis for learning. And it turns out there's a system in our brain, they call the mirror neurons. Mirror, like a normal mirror, they are neurons that mirror certain activities or even emotions. And it turns out that a mirror neuron gets activated not only when an animal or when a person acts himself, but also by observing an action of another person or another primate. And they are hypothesizing that this mirror neuron system is probably responsible for many important functions, such as learning new skills by copying, by imitation, and also the understanding of actions of others and what they mean. Not just actions, also emotions of others. Because an area in our brain gets activated, and to some degree we feel the same emotion as the other person. Maybe you know from personal experience, when you see somebody doing something, maybe hammering a nail into the wall, and then somehow misses the nail and hits the hammer on the finger, and immediately, just as an observer, you shrink back, almost as if it hit your own finger. You feel a little bit of pain. Not physically, but emotionally, you feel the pain there. This is the mirror neuron system, activating and responding to that external observation. So we know how that feels from past experience, something similar, and we have a similar emotional reaction. So it's actually a very important function, and they even have hypothesized that that's also the neurological basis for important emotions, like empathy, or in Buddhism we would call it loving kindness, compassion. In more Western or psychological circles, they call it empathy. So again, it's the mirror neuron system reflecting off the emotions on another, and thereby allowing us to have compassion, loving kindness. So they did experiments already back in the 1980s and 1990s, and they placed electrodes into the brain and then measure responses. Of course, human beings, we don't like that, putting electrodes directly onto your brain, so of course they will do it with animals. It seems for some reasons animals really like that. Probably not, because you have to open the skull and then connect electrodes to the brain, so it's probably not so enjoyable. So anyway, they hooked up a monkey, but it's not life-threatening, so in that sense it's okay. So they wired the monkey's brain to those devices to measure the impulses, and then every time the monkey would take a banana or some food, and they can see certain regions in the brain, certain even individual neurons activating. But then, interestingly, they took a break at some point, and then the scientist, the researcher himself also, he took the banana, and then they saw, hey, on the monkey's brain, the neuron is getting activated, the same one as before when he does the same action himself. How can that be? So again, they saw that the brain reacts not only to one's own motor action, but also by observing the same action by another person, even by a human in this case. So that's how it started. And then later they made many more experiments, seeing also emotions and other things being mirrored. So some observations have been made also. Of course, we have, as humans, we have a similar mirror neuron system. But then interestingly, it does not react just automatically all the time. In fact, it matters to some degree also how strong the person reacts. Depends on one's mental state, and also on what they call attention. How close you pay attention. Or in Buddhism we would say, manasikara. If there's right attention and proper attention, then the mirror neuron system works very well. If there's not full attention, not proper attention, then it's a bit weaker. So, what do we do with this information? How can we apply that in our Dhamma practice? Well, it can be used for good or for ill, because the mirror neuron system makes no differentiation whether you copy or reflect back the information, whether it is a wholesome thing that you see and observe or an unwholesome thing. It works in both directions. So, for example, if you observe or watch violence or anger or arousal or stimulation, sense pleasures, and that also reflects in your own mirror neuron system, even just by observing another person do that. So this can mean that we should probably be careful when we watch advertisements, because seeing another person enjoying certain foods and items and things, whether you want it or not, your mirror neurons will fire. And you can think, no, I don't want this. You're still conditioned. Of course, there's a whole industry behind that, we know that. So again, that can be a word of caution then, and think twice before we observe things that entice, either sense pleasures or violence, both in movies and other circumstances. Having said that, the influence of direct contact is actually much stronger compared to just seeing it on a screen. So they measure that also. So, because often parents or the older generation, we like to warn the youngsters, don't play computer games, video games, it's so bad for you. Yes, maybe not ideal, but then in contrast to a real life situation, this is where the mirror neurons get much more activated. So actually the personal contact is much more strong and much more influential than just seeing something happening on a screen. So yes, it has some impact, but that is of course even more valuable. So therefore again, choosing our companions with whom we spend time is quite important, because whether we want it or not, we pick up on traits, on emotions, on character traits from each other. For good and for ill, of course. It goes in both ways. And even children, babies, they learn the empathic behavior from whom? From their mother, from their dad, from their parents. So it's actually very important in the early phases of human development that we have these moments where somebody takes us on the shoulder or on the breast and takes us close, and we have bodily contact, and we feel of that, the warmth, the kindness. And in this way, the mirror neuron system in the brain develops. In fact, nothing worse than the first 1 year, 2 years being separated from your parents, or having almost no contact with another human, close contact. Yeah, there are big measurable gaps and staying behind. In certain areas you can never catch up later. So, thinking of all of that, the positive and negative influence that can come from contact with each other, we can understand now when the Buddha says how kalyana mittas, spiritual friends, association with a good spiritual friend or companion, that has high value, because we pick up on traits automatically. You hang out with the right people, you come to places like this regularly, not just once in 25 years, but on a regular basis, on Sundays, other activities we're joining in. Of course, every time we expose ourselves to spiritual companions, our mirror neurons support us in the background. So it's actually an easy way of developing a quality without even having to do it on your own. Just watching and observing, spending time together. Or maybe for the lazy people who don't like to do sports yourself, you just watch it on TV. I don't know, do you get better by that? Maybe a little bit you do, actually. By seeing how the football player moves, walks, reacts to certain situations, you could a little bit increase also your skill. But again, it's not the same as doing it on your own. Yeah. So we understand now a little bit better the neurological basis. Why also this mirroring, this copying from each other, learning from each other is so important. And why the Buddha highlighted it as the entirety of the holy life, of the spiritual life. There's another sutta in Anguttara Nikaya, Anguttara 7.36, I wanted to share. Because one should associate with a friend who possesses 7 factors. 7 factors. What 7? The first one is he gives what is hard to give. One gives what is hard to give. So sharing resources, isn't it? So a spiritual friend, a good Dhamma friend, shares resources. Of course, this can refer to the Dhamma, sharing the Dhamma, any new information, but also resources in general. It's going to be material things. And when you're lacking something or hungry, okay, sharing resources sometimes, or driving somewhere together, the person takes you along. So sharing resources, information, Dhamma, material things, whatever it is. And I think we all know how it feels when we are stuck at some point somewhere and kind of lacking and nobody around to support. Whereas if you know, I have my friends, spiritual companions, sometimes family will also fulfill that role, to whom we can fall back onto, we feel safe and secure. So you're giving actually a gift to others. By being a spiritual friend, you give others the gift of safety, of security. How nice. Secondly, he does what is hard to do. Because helping others, supporting others, is not always easy, right? And also it takes time. These are resources. It's not always material resource, can also be time, attention. When a friend is a bit in distress or having some difficulties, then we offer our time, we listen. And sometimes you don't even have to say too much, just being there, empathizing, trying to understand what the person is going through. That helps already so much. We men are often quite fast in offering solutions, Okay, do this, don't do that. Okay, first step 1, step 2, step 3. But this is not always what the person needs in a time of distress. So especially for the males here, be careful with that. It's not always that people are asking for your solution. Some people just need a friend, someone to listen. Just be there for each other. So one does what is hard to do. When sometimes taking time, being there for each other, material support, mental support, it's also not easy to provide that. But also it feels good having done so, isn't it? Some people say, it's a little bit like in the middle of the night you wake up and you really need to go to the toilet. So I think you all know the feeling, you wake up in the middle of the night, you need so urgently, but you want to sleep also. Okay, you go up, go to the toilet, relieve yourself, come back. Okay, you didn't really like to go, but you feel so much better once you have. In the same way, helping somebody else. Sometimes you're a bit hesitant, I actually have my own things to do, I have a whole program, I'm also quite busy, but then actually we feel quite good once we have given our time, helped somebody out. It just feels very rewarding, very fulfilling, also for the person who gives, not only for the receiver. So that's the second quality. One does what is hard to do. Number 3, he patiently endures what is hard to endure. What could that refer to? Well, sometimes also in friendships or in activities together, people will do things that might annoy each other or that you don't fully appreciate. But then sometimes also, instead of just immediately pointing things out and so firing back, okay, I can endure that, it's okay. Yes, maybe sometimes the person is a bit short-tempered, but then, okay, he's also very kind, very generous, have many good qualities. Yeah, maybe this one is a bit different. So I can endure that. I'm a friend. It's fine. We don't expect each other to be perfect, right? So we can endure. Sometimes when people are a bit direct, especially among friends, yeah, they might not always sugarcoat their message, but it's still important for them to share and provide feedback. So it's okay. So we endure that and just listen to the message. Ah, yeah, that's what he really tries to say. So we endure what is hard to endure. Number 4, the person reveals his or her secrets to you. So the person is open. And then of course, number 5 also, he preserves your secrets. So there's a kind of closeness and we share private things with each other. And you wouldn't do that just with everyone on the workplace or anyone whom you meet the first day, but then having a close friend, a buddy, or somebody whom you know for many years. So we entrust them even some personal things. In fact, that's actually what makes a friendship really enriching and fulfilling, that we know each other on a deeper level. Some people don't do that. They think, oh no, I cannot trust anyone. Yes, maybe you're right, maybe you've been hurt in the past. But by not doing that, we are also missing out. If we are missing out, yes, maybe you try to be safe, but by never opening up, by never letting somebody get close, we are missing out on a lot of warmth, depth, and meaning in our relationships. So that's actually the price that we pay for the fear, maybe of some past instances of having been hurt, or maybe our trust was sometimes betrayed, but then there's no way out. Not trusting anyone, that's not the solution. But then when people do reveal their secrets to us, it is important also that we keep those things confidential and don't just walk away and then, you know what she said to me. Especially as a spiritual friend, you know. People entrust you some things that are very personal, very private. Sometimes even their best friends or their spouse doesn't know. That's why they seek you out. Sometimes even the monks, you know, people come to us, monks also, they give us all their private life. So, wow, okay, what am I doing with this now? But then also being able to listen, maybe to provide some perspective from the Dhamma. What would the Buddha say about the situation? Maybe we can offer and share added value by also highlighting, okay, how is this in the light of the Buddha's teachings? But then also keeping those things to ourselves, especially when it's something a bit more confidential. Number 6, one does not forsake you when you are in trouble. A spiritual friend does not forsake you when you're in trouble. It does not abandon you. You know, you're in trouble, okay, only a friend in good times. And then when you have some difficulties, okay, he moves on. Right? There are some people like that also. Oh, they're the best friends. Whenever you have a good time, you can call them. They will join you in for celebration. They're the first to be here. But when you're really in trouble, oh, nobody picks up the phone anymore. So they don't forsake you. They are by your side to support you. And lastly, in this list, he does not roughly despise you. It took me quite a while to figure out what that means. He does not roughly despise you. It means that a friend does not despise you in case of financial troubles or other situation, meaning looking down on you. When you have some difficulties or something, he does not put himself up and look down. Oh, come on, again and again, the same thing with you. Why don't you never learn your lessons? So no, he kind of helps you, supports, listens, is patient. He does not make jokes about you, makes you look in a bad light. So just imagine a person having all these qualities. He preserves your secrets, is patient, gives what is hard to give, does what is hard to do. Is always by your side when you need him or her. Who would not want such a friend? Yeah. So it's no surprise, no wonder that the Buddha highlights how important it is and how beneficial that feels having a person like that in our life. So then, if that is something, well, let me ask first, how many of you would like to have such a spiritual friend? Raise your hand if you would like to have such a good spiritual friend. You don't want, huh? I guess most of us, we would truly appreciate a person like that in our life. How many of you think you have a person like this in your life, who fulfills many or almost all of those factors? Wow, way less than that. A few. So then, isn't it interesting? This is something that we all want. We all want to have friends like that. But many or only very few have that. If this is the case, why do not we try to be that kind of spiritual friend to others? If this is something that everyone appreciates, the easiest way for you to have many friends, to be appreciated by others, is to be that kind of person. Because just now I was asking around and it seems everyone, except one, everyone wants to have such a friend. So then, wouldn't that be a good reason for us to be that and learn how to become that? Of course. Yeah. So these qualities that we just spoke about, these would be the things for me, for us, individually, to cultivate, that we incorporate that in my life. In fact, there's another sutta where the Buddha adds another nuance, a few more possibilities of what, if we want to be a good spiritual friend to somebody else, of what we can do. Should we look at it together? Yeah? This is in Anguttara 7.37. Bhikkhus, one should associate with a bhikkhu friend who possesses 7 qualities. And of course, the Buddha speaks here about monks, but that doesn't mean the principle only applies to monks. It also applies to nuns, to lay devotees, and anyone who wishes to be a spiritual friend or have one. But since the Buddha addresses the monks, he speaks about monastics. So, one should associate, he says, with a friend who possesses 7 qualities. One should resort to him and attend on him, even if he dismisses you. So it also could be a teacher, a spiritual teacher. Even if he were to send you away, you should still try to get close and still try to make friends. Maybe sometimes the monk has misbehaved or did something that may have offended the teacher. But if this is a great teacher, a great guide, a great support, you should try to your best, maybe to apologize, and even try to get back and try to mend the relationship. So even if he dismisses you, you should try to attend on him and resort to him. So what are these 7 qualities? He's pleasing and agreeable. This is also a quality of a spiritual friend. He's pleasing, he's a nice person to be around with. You know, it's not rough, he's pleasing, it's enjoyable to be in the presence of that person. Because it doesn't matter how much a person knows or how experienced the person is, but if the conduct is in certain ways that really make it difficult to be around, well, people will still not enjoy seeking the counsel or being around. So he's pleasing and agreeable. So likewise, if we want to be good friends to somebody else, let us also make sure that in general, doesn't mean all the time, but generally, you try to be pleasing and agreeable. Number 2, he is respected. So he's a person who is respect-worthy. He's respected by others. Because also by associating with that person, you come along, oh yeah, people associate with you also, oh okay, you're also part of this team, or you're part of the group of those 101s, or whatever it is. So you associate yourself with those people, and then automatically people also relate to each other in a similar manner. So if the person is respected, the opposite would also be the case. If we hang out with people who others look down upon, just by association can also be a little bit that we also get a little bit of that treatment, even though we haven't done anything wrong. And on the positive side, the same happens. If you associate with people who are highly esteemed, respected, also we get a little bit that benefit. Number 4 is exactly already what I mentioned, the person is esteemed. Number 4, just number 2 and 3, sorry. So number 1 was he's pleasing and agreeable. Number 2 was he's respected. Number 3, the person is esteemed. And number 4, he's a speaker. Now, a speaker doesn't mean necessarily a public speaker or somebody who gives great talks, but more along the lines that he admonishes. He speaks to you when you make some mistake. So when you screw something up, a good friend, a true friend, is not somebody who says, no worries, it's no problem. Okay, no, others screwed this up. No, it wasn't you actually. So yes, it's good to have each other's back, but then if you really make a mistake, it's good also if somebody taps us on the shoulder. Hold on. We're not doing the right thing here. So somebody who holds us back and prevents us from doing the wrong thing, from doing something unwholesome, unbeneficial, inappropriate. So we need sometimes that person there, like a reality check. And a good friend can be that. We can do that for each other. Everyone have our blind spots somewhere, right? So you think, oh, this is really a great idea. But then somebody else, from a bit of a distance, can see, no, that's not going to go well for us, or for whatever he's trying to do. So to provide feedback at the right time, spoken with kindness, with compassion, with metta, that's what a good friend would do. So he's a speaker. Number 5, he patiently endures being spoken to. So you may also at times say something to him, oh, actually what you're doing here also didn't feel good to me, or what he said this, I did that. And then the person also can take that and accept that and appreciate that maybe even. So some people are very good in providing feedback, but you tell them anything in return. Who are you to tell me, you look at your things, you do this, you do this, you do this, they point so immediately back to you. Well, that's not the right way. In fact, feedback, or constructive feedback, is almost like somebody pointing out a treasure to you. A treasure is something that we don't know where it is. It's something hidden. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight. Everybody else can see it, but we don't. So everyone have our blind spots. So somebody taking the trouble and approaching and kindly, hopefully, pointing that out at the right time, we should appreciate that. That somebody takes the trouble, because there's always a risk a little bit involved, right? When you approach somebody and want to say something, you never know how it's going. Will they be able to accept it, or will it sour our relationship? So again, taking the risk, taking the trouble, yes, but then also when people come to us, can I appreciate that? Can I see the value in that? Or even if it's not packaged 100% nicely, politely, can I still get the message and leave the packaging behind? Like you get a birthday gift, right? When you get a birthday gift, it's not something wrapped in a kind of box and there's some decoration around. And sometimes maybe the box is a bit damaged and it's not so beautiful anymore. Yeah, don't worry so much about the box, about the wrapping. It's about the gift inside. Don't get caught up in the box and throw it away. No, I don't like the box. So there's a treasure inside. Somebody providing feedback is like pointing out a treasure. Whether it's given nicely packaged, or sometimes not so nicely packaged, In the end, it's about the thing inside. So we should learn to appreciate somebody taking the trouble and pointing something out. And then, of course, we still evaluate that information, that feedback. Is it really true? Does it really apply? Sometimes also people might provide some information, some feedback about something you didn't do wrong. Or maybe they have a misperception. Then also it's okay, then you don't need to change, right? It's fine. So one patiently endures being spoken to. Next, he gives deep talks or deep conversations. So it's somebody with whom you can have a conversation about deep matters, personal matters, Dhamma practice, the spiritual path, not only about the weather, politics, sports, music. Sure, that might also be sometimes enjoyable, but then when it comes to spiritual growth, spiritual development, we would actually often appreciate much more deeper conversations, isn't it? Sometimes people ask me, Bante, why did you become a monk? I mean, there can be multiple reasons. If you ask different monks, you ask 5 monks, you get 7 answers. But then, I do remember one of the reasons for me personally, before I became a monk, when I was still living in Austria as a layperson, studying music and economics. Yes, I enjoyed those activities, it was fine. But then I also realized in my friendships, or in the relationships of people I met, I was often longing for deeper conversations. I was already interested in the Dhamma, spiritual practice, mindfulness, meditation, but my friends were not all Dhamma friends, almost nobody. So then the conversations would often be, like among young men about sports or politics, these kind of things. So then often I felt, well, this is kind of very surface level, very shallow. And I think if you were to ask around people, do you prefer to have a surface conversation or a deep conversation? Just like earlier, almost everyone would raise their hand again. Yes, we want to have deep, meaningful, purposeful conversations. But how often does it really happen in real life? Again, if this is what that we all appreciate, then maybe we can be the one who contributes to that and maybe diverges the topic from politics and then, okay, maybe I can even see politics in the light of the Dhamma a little bit. What's the reason why one country invades the other? Well, usually it's related to some resources, either oil or other resources. So greed probably behind that, desire, attachment. Or maybe in the past they have invaded us, so now we want to get back. So that's maybe rooted in aversion or anger. So and suddenly we're in the middle of a Dhamma conversation. So you can always actually find ways, if you're smart, intelligent, you can find ways of diverting a conversation back to the Dhamma. Not completely away from the topic, but seeing the same topic in the light of the Dhamma. And in this way, as a Buddhist, as a Dhamma practitioner, you can bring value to any conversation. You don't have to sit there and just be bored, or another conversation about politics. But you can contribute in a meaningful way to that. So he gives deep talks, or has deep conversations, you can say. And lastly, he does not enjoin one to do what is wrong. Right? So if he does not motivate you to do something unwholesome, let's go to the nightclub together, or let's beat up some guys out there, or whatever, some stupid stuff, or go out drinking, or whatever. So he does not encourage you to do something unwholesome, quite the opposite. He takes you along for the wholesome activities. I recall there's a group here in KL actually of devotees. They're meeting regularly, I think something like once a month, and they go to the market and they buy a huge bunch of fish, but not for makan. I think something almost about, I have heard about 100 kg of fish, Pada Eng Kyong and his friends. They go to buy it at the market, and then, because this fish would have been sold for slaughter and for eating, for consumption, so they buy them and release them in a nearby lake or river and set them free. Wow, how nice. Amazing. You see, this is the kind of activities that a good friend would encourage us towards. Hey, let's do this together. Join us, let's go. So instead of going out doing something unwholesome, let's do something wholesome, something nice together. So again, this would be a way how a spiritual friend, and how we can all be spiritual friends in our own ways to each other, to encourage each other to come to places like this, listen to the Dhamma, to meditate sometimes together. So use your own creativity in your own life. What could be the wholesome activities that fit into your circumstances? And I'm sure we can all find something. So then, to highlight the value of good friendship, not only on an individual level, as we have discussed now, we can also think a little bit about how does it play out on the larger scales among groups. Okay, let's say the smallest group is two, a couple, like the classic couple, husband and wife, or whatever couple in a relationship. So there, of course, also we would like to foster similar qualities in each other, and also have and portray the same qualities. Often when we speak of spiritual friends, we think very far away, never in our own relationship, right? Well, why don't we try to do the same also with our own partners, spouse, children? Because they're the ones who matter the most. And they're the ones with whom we spend the most time. So to provide emotional support in times of hardship or crisis, of course. Or sometimes people might temporarily fall into depression. Try to support them. There might be certain things they cannot even do during that period. Trying to support them, cope, also be patient with them. Also spiritual support, encouraging each other to meditate, to practice, do wholesome things. So even in a relationship. But then also expanding a bit further, family. Yes, same principle, isn't it? Financial support, resources, physical support. Maybe an uncle, they're building a house or renovating their apartment. They always need some hand to help. So this is a way of supporting. So it doesn't always have to be spiritual support. Yeah, they're building a house, I want to renovate, and then you go over and say, okay, sit down, I'll teach you the Dhamma. Wow, the roof is falling on our heads. We have to work here. No, I give you a Dhamma doctor, just listen. So yeah, also looking, what do the people need, and offering and providing and supporting in that area. Even for us monks also, sometimes people come, they shower us with all kinds of gifts, but some of those things we don't really need. Sometimes we get hair shampoo. Hair shampoo, really? Did you really think that through properly? Hair shampoo for monks. For our long hair. So, okay, what does the person need? And then what I'm trying to support, is it of real value, of benefit to the person? So, family, relationships, but then also something a bit bigger again, in a company or on the workplace. Again, even between corporations, there can be friendships, or maybe we wouldn't call it spiritual friendship, but there can be business relationships, business partnerships, where they do certain projects together, or maybe collaborations. They might have shared goals. So again, very common, even on YouTube. You see one YouTuber, very famous, another one also, and then before you know it, they collaborate and do something together. It's quite common these days. So business partnerships, collaborations, friendships, mutual support. And even on a larger scale, you could say even states. Some states, if they don't go to war, they can be quite friendly with each other and again support each other. With trade partnerships, or sometimes military partnerships. I don't know whether we should promote it or not, for good or for ill. Travel and visa situations, often when countries are supporting each other, close with each other, have good relations. Then you want to travel to that country as a private citizen. Oh, it's very easy to get visa there. Whereas countries who are not on good terms with each other, good luck getting a visa. Yeah, you have to apply in advance, and then you get a short visa, and then you have to extend, and it's very troublesome. Whereas countries who have close business relationships, partnerships, very easy to travel, even for the citizens. And most importantly, even Buddhist societies have relationships with each other. Just earlier mentioned, BAPS was founded 25 years ago, SPS also. In fact, even at the time of the foundation of BAPS, Bandar, I think, was quite instrumental and was here, was giving his support, his advice, his counsel, so helping out in the background. And then likewise also in SPS, we have our Katina ceremony every year, or often see committee members from pubs coming up, often a whole bus full coming up and joining our activities over there. It's very beautiful, where you see the exchange, collaboration among Buddhist societies. And likewise, just like now, I'm coming down to KL, happy to share the Dhamma here. And then likewise, when our monks, also sometimes they come to KL, maybe for medical treatment or medical checkup, for something we cannot get up in Taiping, then Pubs often provides the place, accommodation, food, shelter for the time. Sometimes they are here for a couple of days, or there were occasions even for a week or two. And then very nice, they have a place here, a Dhamma center. So again, Buddhist societies collaborating, supporting each other. So very beautiful. So, my dear friends in the Dhamma, seeing and hearing about all these benefits, as I mentioned earlier, the qualities of a good spiritual friend, I would suggest, let us make a determination, not only to look for a good spiritual friend in others, how can I find one, where are they, but also to be a good spiritual friend to others. Therefore, today, and also I would say in the days to come, whenever an opportunity arises in your own daily life situation, you can think, what would a good spiritual friend do in this situation? And then act accordingly and bring it to life. So don't just, like Michael Jackson singing, heal the world, make it a better place. So we want to be the change that we want to see in the world. And then we are the ones who truly make it a better place. So let's do this together. I offer that for your reflection today.